Good afternoon, NCRGEA members, and welcome to today's webinar, The Letter. I'm your host, Tom McCullum, and today we'll be joined by Tim O'Connell, NCRGEA's Executive Director, who'll bring you up to date on a few activities the association is working on. Also, we'll be joined by Jerry Pinkard, a member of NCRGEA's Board of Directors. Jerry retired from Mecklenburg County as their IT Director after a 28-year career. He has a strong interest in financial matters, which helped him see the need to develop this presentation. Before we begin this webinar, I want to go over a few items. Each of you has been muted to help ensure the presenters can be heard. This webinar is being recorded and will be posted to our YouTube account. We'll also send out an email to everyone with the link to our account and announce it on our social media sites, as well as post it to our web pages. For those of you who sent us questions, we submitted them to Jerry, and many of them will be answered during his presentation. If you think of a question during the presentation, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of the Zoom page. Jerry will try to respond to your question during the webinar, but if not, we will read the questions at the end so that Jerry can respond then. And finally, we'll also be posting questions throughout using our poll feature during the webinar. We do this to help emphasize important points and add focus to what we're saying. So without further ado, here's NCRGEA's Executive Director, Tim O'Connell.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be here, and thank you for joining us. Really excited about this program. Jerry has done it in the past for us, and cannot tell you what a just meaningful program it is. And I would say it's a mix of a very practical and also I'm almost gonna go say a spiritual way of kind of thinking about some things here. So can't again thank Jerry enough for putting it together for us today. Couple things that I want to share with you. First, thank you for your membership in NCRGEA. It makes a difference. And you did the service for North Carolina in local and state government, and you made a difference. And through your membership, you're helping still make a difference through our advocacy work. So I appreciate your membership and truly mean that on behalf of all the staff and the board. Just two items I want to share with you. One, if you voted yesterday, thanks so much. That's what makes us a great country, is when we all get engaged and vote. The race that we really watch, and I hope you are too, is the treasurer's race. That is the one that is most applicable to your retirement and health benefits. I think we have two good candidates in both parties, and we will continue to help you vet those. We do not recommend any one candidate, but we try to make sure that you have the information to make the best decision you can for you based upon our goals, our legislative agenda goals. So we'll be sharing more and more of that out, but thank you for voting yesterday. Two upcoming events that I want to make sure, and you're probably going to hear it a couple times, but we've got our one of our annual conference locations. We're going to be in Raleigh on April 1st and 2nd. Love to have you come out. Should be a really good program. We may potentially have a couple of those treasurer candidates at the meeting. So we are working on that. So I hope you'll come to Raleigh, or if you're in Raleigh or Wake County or one of the outlying counties, please come. Some of our conferences, we have some folks that make it into a little vacation. So if you want to do a little conference and come visit us at Raleigh, see some of the sites, it's a great way to do it. We're going to invite you back again on May 1st. This is a really important day as well. We've got our advocacy days. It's also our public service recognition days at the General Assembly. And it's just a great day for us to work with our legislators, make sure they're informed on the importance of public service, and at the same time, our advocacy agenda that we're working on your behalf. And there's not a stronger voice than yours when we go down there. If you are in their constituency, if the legislators that we are connecting with, if you're actually in their district and voting for them, that is so much more powerful than me showing up with my lobbyist credentials. So I seriously hope you'll come out and join us. And as an added bonus, we will be having Parker's Barbecue again. It's a crowd pleaser. Last year we had about, I think, Tom, 400 folks. We fed a lot of folks that day. I got to be honest, about 2:30 or 3, it was hard not to take a nap. But it was just a great day and a great way of celebrating public service and making sure our legislators are engaged in that as well. So May 1st, put that on your calendar, come to Raleigh for public service and advocacy days here with NCRGEA. Thank you again, and I'm looking forward to the program.
Thank you, Tim. Registration for the information about registration for the conference in Raleigh on April 1st and 2nd will be going out on emails later this week. Those of you who live in Wake County, you'll be receiving a flyer through the mail on it also, especially those in Durham County, Chatham County, and parts of Johnson and Nash counties also. And then we'll be announcing the registration and announcements for the May 1st Public Service Week recognition later in just a couple of weeks too. So more information on that one to follow. But now here's Jerry Pinkard with the letter. Jerry?
Okay, thank you, Tom. Good afternoon, everyone. I understand we have a large turnout, and I'm very pleased with that. I have done this presentation several times, but it's always been within specific districts. So this is a much larger audience than we normally have. As Tom mentioned, I'm an NCRGEA board member representing District 6. And I did retire from Mecklenburg County as their IT director after 28 years of service. I do have an interest in financial planning, although I'm not a financial planner as such. I found this topic to be very interesting and relevant to me, and I hope that you will find it helpful for your own purposes. So next slide, please. Okay, and next slide. Okay, what the letter of final instructions is, it's a complete and up-to-date set of written instructions for your loved one and executor to follow for disposition of your estate, and last wishes for your family to follow if you are ruled incompetent. And note the underlined words complete, which, it has to be complete, everything that's needed. And then it needs to be up to date. You'll find in putting together all the information necessary for the letter, there's a lot of information that will change from year to year. You'll have passwords that change, accounts that might change, contact information that might change. So it's good to have at least once a year sit down and review the letter and update those things that have changed. And then finally, trying to have everything in writing for your loved ones and executor, because you're not going to be there to help them. And so they're going to need everything to be in writing. And the last thing on there, it says about, we talk about our death, but it also, the other scenario is if someone is ruled incompetent. And that does happen, especially as we get older. The odds of us having dementia or cognitive issues increases substantially. I read a recent study by Columbia University where they say that 10% of US adults 65 and older have dementia, while another 22% have mild cognitive impairment, which may lead to dementia later on or not. Some do, some don't. But that's basically a third of people 65 and older that have some cognitive issues. So it's even more of an incentive to document everything, because we never know when that might occur. Another thing I'll mention here, you submitted a lot of questions, which we thank you for. However, many of them were really out of scope. For example, there were a lot of questions about estate documents, especially trust. And although we will touch on that in the presentation, I'm certainly not a trust expert nor an estate attorney expert. So what we give you sort of general information, and if you need more information in that regard, you should consult an estate attorney. Attorneys like everyone else tend to specialize, and there are some attorneys that specialize in estates or a trust. And so that's the type of attorney you would need. And there's other items that come up regarding legal matters, which are beyond the scope of what we're trying to do. I'm not an attorney, and certainly should not be giving anybody legal advice. And there's also some tax issues that came up. And again, we'll talk briefly about taxes, but the specific questions about taxation are again beyond the scope. And somebody asked, is a letter legal in every state? Well, it's not a legal document. It's as this paragraph or sentence says, it's really documenting everything that's needed by your loved ones or executor to handle your estate. So, but again, it has no legal standing. Next slide, please. Okay, our agenda today is you'll see the items that are covered there. I'll give you some examples of things that should be in the letter and possible places where documents might be stored. And we'll talk a little bit about digital records, which is a relatively new thing. It's only come about within the last 10 years or so. And of course, we'll talk some about taxes, funeral arrangements. There were a number of questions about that. And then the format of the letter. I have a format that I use, but you may or may not find that helpful for you. And then some final recommendations. The inspiration for the letter was really, you'll find that in many households, one spouse will handle all the business and financial matters, whereas the other one will not, will have little or no involvement and may have little interest or ability to deal with that. And so that creates an issue. And then also we're now into a complex digital world, whereas maybe 20 years ago, most everything was in paper. So if you had the paper, you could sort of muddle your way through the estate, settling the estate. But it's not necessarily true today, because in many instances you may have accounts that are online only, so there's no paper for that. So again, it's very important to document those types of things. And then finally, really, I got inspired to do this when I'm part of a financial forum that's very active, and there's some really smart people on that forum. And there was a discussion a few years ago about the letter of final instructions. And surprisingly, these people are typically well organized and pretty much have their stuff together. But surprisingly, insofar as the documenting everything for their estate, many of them, including me, were not in good shape. So it inspired me that I need to do this for my family, which I have done. And hopefully you'll find this an inspiration for you if you haven't done or haven't completed your letter. So, and the next slide is a disclaimer. The advice, examples, and lists are intended as general advice. They do not apply to every situation and are not exhaustive. Your situation may be different, and you may have items that we've not covered. So again, this is not legal or financial advice. The next three slides will cover examples for the letter. And some of these will have further slides to talk about them in more depth. But first thing is, where are your documents located? In today's world, they can be in several different places: paper, digital, safety deposit box, etc. And then identify what estate documents you have, especially a will for probate. And then you need a contact list, and this list would include friends and family, would also various types of business people, financial advisor, attorney, tax preparer, and then, you know, pastor and church if appropriate. And of that list, who should be informed about your death from a personal and a business perspective. And then you really need to have contact information, not only for online addresses, but also physical address for all the businesses you're involved with. And then, of course, funeral arrangements. And I'll have another slide on that in a little while. Pensions and security, I think all of us have those in this group. And not only should the letter list the things that need to be done, but how they are to be handled. In some cases, it'll be obvious just by mentioning it, what has to be done, but in others, it requires more documentation. So we'll talk about how that can be done in a little bit. The next slide has insurance, all the different types of insurance you might have, whatever bank or credit union accounts you might have. And then, of course, any investment accounts should be included. One of the things that I'm really stress to people is that there should be beneficiaries on all asset accounts, including your checking and savings. And the reason for that, yeah, they could be in the will, but putting them on the particular accounts is more flexible because some of those beneficiaries may change over time. You know, the time you do a will until the time you pass might be 10 or 15 years. So in that time frame, you may want to change beneficiaries for a variety of purposes. Someone has now deceased, or you have new grandchildren, or whatever. And but it's a very simple matter to change the beneficiaries on a financial account. Oftentimes it can be done online. Whereas if you want to change your will, that involves getting an attorney to change your will for you. And naturally, they're going to charge you for that. So it's more economical and more flexible to do it the way I'm advocating. And then you would also have accounts to change. You know, for example, if you have joint accounts with your spouse, well, that has to change to be for that spouse only, that kind of thing. So all of those would need to be changed, and it would include pretty much everything, like all your insurance accounts would have to change, as well as banking and investment and so forth. And the disposition of personal assets. Some assets can be fairly have good value. For example, automobiles or furniture, jewelry. Somebody may have a motorcycle or boats, various things. You list all of those things and how they're to be disposed of. And then this is really important. Auto deposits and auto payments. Excuse me. I think today, even those who maybe aren't really terribly active in the online world still have a lot of automatic deposit and payment accounts. Social Security and pensions come that way, as well as perhaps others. And I know for our family, we rarely write a check anymore. Almost everything is auto payments for us. But if you have that, and then you have this change, you have to get in touch with all those companies and let them know of the change. So business accounts would be, you know, for many of us, be maybe utilities and phones and things like that. But the executor is going to need to know about all of the accounts that you have so they can take appropriate action. The next slide, please. And this is the third slide here. It lists a few more things. Outstanding liabilities, any loans or mortgages you have, taxes, and like I say, we'll talk a little more about that in a few minutes. Having a net worth statement is an optional thing, but it can be useful to identify valuable assets. For example, you may have antiques or jewelry or hobby collections, what have you. The credit freeze and unfreeze instructions are really important. This is the single most important thing you can do to protect your personal identity. And the reason for that, if hackers get your personal identity information, the first thing they'll try to do is open accounts in your name, like a credit card account, and then run up a bunch of charges against that account. If your credit is frozen at those credit bureaus, they'll be unable to do that. So I encourage everybody to just go online with each of those credit bureaus and establish an account, log on and password, and then you have the freeze your credit. And you'll probably have occasions where you want to unfreeze it temporarily. For example, if you buy a phone or buy a new car, they'll run a credit check on you, and if it's frozen, they'll find that out very quickly. And you can just ask them which credit bureau do you use, and then you can unfreeze it. Often just go online and do that temporarily, so they can do their credit check. So it's very it's a very useful thing to have, and I really encourage everybody to sign up and manage their credit. And we're going to talk a little bit now about important documents and how to deal with them. And so the next slide, please. Next slide, please. Excuse me. All the tree pollen is early this year, that I can tell. As far as examples here, in paper, you will typically have estate documents because they're notarized and you need to have the original copies, maybe deeds, titles, and insurance policies. And then some personal identity records such as birth certificate, social security card, driver's license, and passport. And one of the things I encourage you to do is to secure those documents, even those personal identity records, because some hacker could steal that information and still open accounts in your deceased loved one's name, which could create a lot of problems for the estate. So keep those records secure. And some records may be in paper or digital, like bank statements, income tax returns, investment account statements. And if, a lot of these companies encourage you to go paperless, and that's fine, but I would encourage you maybe once a year, just print out a paper copy of each of those statements and keep them together. Because sometimes if you have to go and deal with those companies, there may be information on that statement that's that you need in order to resolve whatever issues you're trying to resolve. And if your paper files are extensive, provide a layout of where categories of things are. And this is true of digital as well. Have meaningful names. Segregate the information into different categories like taxes or investments or whatever. And you should do the same thing with digital records that you have. And if you have a safety deposit box, then you should probably have your estate documents and deeds and other valuables there. And if you know, some people might have those in a safe, and that's fine too. So next slide, please. Okay, we're coming to an area where some out of sequence here. Okay, where is everything located? That we're talking about digital records, and this is where the law has changed a lot in the last 10 years, because 20, 30 years ago, you didn't have to worry about social media accounts and other digital records, online photo albums, and the like. Those things were, they were not in a digital form. And so first thing you need to do is let people know where they are, whether on a hard drive, a thumb drive, or cloud or online, and then how to access those. And providing name, address, phone, and online addresses. And I say optional for logon IDs and passwords, but I and even the many attorneys advise against disclosing that information. And one of the reasons for, well, the reason for that, it's really illegal to access accounts using IDs and passwords without proper authorization. And once your loved one passes, the assets and accounts they have transfer immediately upon death to his or her estate. That the estate is the owner of those, and so it's important to make sure you have proper access. North Carolina changed the law in 2016 to govern access of digital assets. It's called the Revised Uniform Fiduciary Access to Digital Assets. You know, we had our estate documents updated a few years ago, and our attorney, I just wanted a complete set of everything, and she gave us a document called Digital Assets, Authorization and Consent for Release. And that's the document that you would need to present to some of these companies in order to gain access to their records. An example of that might be like Facebook. You know, a lot of people use Facebook, and some people use it a lot. They use it to record events in their lives, whether it be birthdays, anniversaries, graduations, other vacations, all of those types of things, and they'll usually have lots of photos that go with that. So there's a lot of memories associated with that individual online. In order to get access to that, you need to have some authorization. The one caveat I would put forth here is that the social media companies like Facebook and Microsoft and Google and so forth, they developed policies for this before the governments came along with new laws. And for that reason, sometimes they're not necessarily in sync with one another. So if you have an account like Facebook or Instagram or whatever that you your loved one has a lot of information on you want to preserve, then I would recommend contacting that specific one to ask what you need to do to gain access, because it may be the form I described is sufficient, or they may have something else. So even though in North Carolina that we have the law, it's not a given if these other companies will honor that. So you need to know what they will accept. And Facebook, and I'm assuming others will do this as well, they will memorialize your loved one's Facebook page upon authorized request, which would be something many people would want to do. Okay, next page, please. Here we're going to talk a little bit about estate documents. Of course, I think everyone should have a written will. And I would recommend that be done by an attorney. All of these documents can be done without an attorney, but I think you'll find that once you use an attorney, without an attorney, I think a lot of companies will sort of treat things done by yourself with a jaundiced eye, even though it may be legal. So it's definitely to your benefit to have a will. And you know, in their base form, these documents would not be expensive for a lawyer to do. But the difference between a power of attorney and a durable power of attorney is simply durable power of attorney will remain in effect if someone becomes incompetent, whereas the power of attorney would cease. But they both cease upon the death of an individual. And of course, that's where the executor would take over. And I really recommend a healthcare power of attorney and an advance directive as well. The healthcare power of attorney is something that would authorize someone to speak for you when you can't speak for yourself. You may be unconscious and unable to give doctors guidance in terms of how to treat you. And in a similar manner, an advance directive is essentially telling medical people when to pull the plug. And they usually have various scenarios within which that occurs. That's a very difficult decision to leave to your loved ones. And so I really recommend that that you do that and do not leave this decision to your loved ones. And you see again the digital assets authorization and consent for release. It's definitely, if you have digital accounts you want access to, you need that. And then personal property, we talked a little bit about that earlier, but you should also have a list of items that maybe aren't monetarily very valuable, but they have a lot of sentimental value. And you know, you could have that as a separate. My mother did that, and it wasn't in the will, but it was something the family, she had parsed things out to her children, and there was never any real issue with that. And trust, I put it here, but a lot of people, you know, the question is, do you have a trust or not a trust? And then of course, the real question is, what type of trust would you have? And so that gets complicated very quickly. And, you know, I really am very limited in what I could say about that. And I certainly cannot give anybody advice. So again, if you have interest in trust, I recommend that you seek out an attorney that does trust, that specializes in trust, to make sure you get the proper advice. And beyond what I've laid out here, discussion of estates is outside the scope of the presentation. Okay, this is always a fun topic, taxes. You actually need to have 7 years tax returns with supporting documentation. The IRS only requires 3 years. However, if they audit you and they find issues in your returns, they have the option of going back 7 years. So since we don't know the outcome of any potential audit, you really need to have 7 years. And you need more than just the return itself. You need the supporting documentation, because if you go into an audit and they're asking for supporting documentation for deductions that you might want to take, whatever, if you can't produce that, no matter how legitimate it might be, you'll probably lose that deduction, and it will cost you money. So definitely keep the supporting documentation together. And most people today would use a tax software like TurboTax or H&R Block or others, and or they might use a firm to do their taxes. So that needs to be identified in your letter. And certainly one thing about that I recommend in retirement, I have found that in my own personal situation, not that I have a huge return, but it just seems like money comes from different places, from the pension, from Social Security, from CDs or other interest-bearing instruments or stocks and so forth. So having to document all that, making sure that I don't have to do quarterly estimated tax payments, or I might have to do that, knowing that you can't wait until the end of the year to do that. Otherwise, there's penalties for doing it. So anyway, doing the proper planning, I found that that's something that I need to do. And it also would help someone coming behind me, because if I have certain deductions or other things like estimated tax payments, documenting all that so somebody knows. When I was working, I could wait to the end of the year and do everything, no problem. But as a retiree, it's not, at least for me, it's not that easy. And some of you may not know what a required RMD is, which is a required minimum distribution. This is something, once you reach age 73, the government requires you to take a portion of your 401k or your IRAs as income in that particular year. It's typically going to run between 4 and 5% of the balance of those accounts. But if you don't do that, there are substantial penalties for not doing it. So you need to do it. And also, somebody coming behind you in the middle of the year, they may not know whether you've done it or not. So having documented all of that is very helpful for people coming behind you. And then, of course, some retirees have side businesses. Some may be small and some may be not so small. But regardless, you need to document your any business income or other income you have, so that whoever's doing your taxes following your death will be able to do that correctly. And just a final note here, tax returns must be filed for the deceased in the year of death, and a separate return for the estate. So there's 2 returns in that year of death. And for example, if someone dies on January 1st of 2024, their estate would have to file a tax return for them for the tax year 2024, as well as an estate return. And the estate returns for a simple estate are not terribly difficult, but my mother had a very small, simple estate, but we had one issue that was a little bit tricky. And so I was her executor. And so that's the only time in my life I ever paid a CPA to do taxes for me. But it was money well spent, because estate tax returns are different, and they have different complexities to them. So it's something that you might want to consider if you're confronted with that. So funeral arrangements. Some people ask, well, Should I plan my funeral? Should I prepay it? Those are individual decisions, but as we get older, if you're 50 years old, maybe not. But if you're retired and past 65, it's probably a good thing to do for a couple of reasons. First, following the death of someone, the family is in grief. There's a lot on their plate in terms of dealing with your affairs after your death, and what the extent that you've done planning for your funeral and written your obituary, any special requests you might have, that's a big plus. Some of us have very specific things we want to have done in our funeral. And so this is where you can lay that out. And it really takes the burden off of your family to do this. So I definitely recommend older people to do this, including your obituary. That's kind of a weird feeling when you do that, but it's something that will be very handy for your family. And next, talk a little bit about the letter layout and style. A lot of people asked about this, and it's really your preference and your situation that would dictate, the format you use. You may prefer a different approach than what I did. What I did is I provided a checklist, if you will, at the beginning, at the front of the document. And it's mine, I think, is 2, maybe 3 pages. But it's 1 or 2 lines for each item. And a lot of items are, what you need to do is self-evident from just stating it. But some of the items will require more direction, more information. And so following the checklist, I would have a list of those things that require more detail, so people can refer to that as needed. And I like to do lists for things like, a contact list, a list of all the accounts that you have, a list of all the auto deposits and payments, medical providers, and any personal assets, financial assets. And it mentioned this earlier, but if you have a lot of electronic accounts, I recommend at least once a year get a hard copy of that statement and include it in the letter, because that could be very helpful later on. Here's the letter. I sort of sanitized the one I had and provided sort of 2 pages of things that would be in there. And I know somebody asked about, what do you do first? Well, I think this sort of lays out this. I won't say everything's in chronological order, but certainly the first page are things that you would be dealing with as soon as possible. So you can see, just the different thing, making the funeral arrangements with the pastor, taking your body to the funeral home, stipulating which funeral home, which can be very important for some, and then getting original copies of the death certificate. You'll find that some people will need that more than just one, so you probably need at least 3 originals. And then usually the funeral home will inform the Social Security Administration, but you need to make sure that has been done. And then get the estate documents from the safety deposit box. And then the executor would need to probate the will and anything else that's part of the estate. And as I mentioned earlier, if you have identified beneficiaries for financial accounts, that bypasses probate. So that's an advantage to you. one less thing there and saves you some money. Okay. And here's more examples. Of course, you would notify the North Carolina retirement system, and anyone else that, obituaries in a newspaper, at least in Charlotte, are insanely expensive. So you can get a little small block ad for maybe 5 or 6 lines. It'll cost you several $100s. So I don't know how these people produce these huge obituaries in the paper. But anyway, some people might use an abbreviated version in the newspaper and a longer one at the funeral home website. You see all the other things, everything needs to be changed. Anything that's in your name or that has a joint name has to be changed. Another thing that's important for your surviving spouse, if that's the case, is once they've inherited all these things, they need to make sure their estate documents and updated beneficiary information is current and correct. The timeline for doing estate taxes is different. I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's not aligned the same as the personal tax returns. And again, I mentioned the required minimum distribution. So here's final recommendations. You need to update the letter at least once a year because, as I mentioned earlier, things will change. There's a lot of information we're talking about, and there will be changes, maybe not major, but there will be some changes every year. Password changes, contact information, accounts, so forth. And keep a copy in a safe place, ideally a safety deposit box or a safe. And you should give a copy to your loved ones and your executor. Review the letter with them to make sure they understand it, because you may well have produced a lot of information here, and it may not always be intuitively obvious what needs to be done. So therefore, it's important that they have an understanding of it. And as you go through this, it's not uncommon. In fact, it's more common that whoever is handling this would need some form of assistance to complete the execution of the letter. For example, they may need an estate attorney to help them, a tax professional, a financial advisor, and some people might need help with, a lot of this stuff is now online, so some people are not that proficient online and may need some help in that realm. So those are examples of things. And I will throw out one caveat I just recently learned about with my investment account. Investment firms will typically, they will guarantee you that you will not lose money in your account if it's hacked into, unless you have been negligent in managing your account. And negligence could be in not keeping not using security software or not keeping it up to date, and a variety of other things, not notifying them in a timely fashion. But one of the things, I knew all that, but what I didn't know was that if I disclose my ID and password to anyone else, including my wife, I could potentially void that warranty. So it's something you need to be aware of and make sure that you're doing the right things and not risking voiding that assurance of keeping your, repayment in case of an online hack. These things are happening more and more, and the hackers are getting smarter and smarter. So anyway, that's just an added point there. And so with that, thank you for your attention while we went through that. And I think we might now have time for a few questions.
Folks, as you can see,
Okay, poll first.
we just posted up one of our polls. If you just take a moment and answer our first poll question, and that is, do you have a complete set of estate documents like those described in this presentation? Jerry, there are the results. Sadly, 68%, almost just over 2/3 of the people don't, or the audience does not have this. So hopefully a lot of people pay attention and have their documentation together. And Daryl, time for questions.
Oh, I think there's another poll, Tom.
Yes. Next poll, on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being done and 1 being not started, how prepared are you and your spouse or family in documenting final instructions?
Okay.
There's a wide variety. A lot have started in one form or another. Few have got them completely done. Few have not started. So hopefully, Jerry, a lot of people in the audience have paid attention and have got some ideas on where they need to start and where they need to go with this. So Daryl, some questions
Yes.
we have. I see
I-
that.
Yes, I do have a couple. One, Jerry, and maybe before I get started, thank you so much for that presentation. The information is just invaluable. And several people sent questions prior to, and you addressed some of those. But this is one I think that has not been addressed. How do you ensure that your pet needs are met after the owner's death?
Yeah, this has come up in previous presentations. Pets are family, right? And so people have a real concern about that. And some people would want to leave money for to take care of their pet after they're gone, and they may have a friend whom they trust to manage that money for them. And in some cases, maybe not. And so there is such a thing as a pet trust. And I don't know anything about it, but you'd obviously have to contact an attorney to set one up. But it would set aside money for your pet and assure that the monies in that trust would be spent for the care of that pet.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. The second question is, how do I put, and this came from a member, into a trust fund for my handicapped child so she or he won't lose SSI?
Yeah, that can be done. There's something called a special needs trust that's for that particular purpose. And again, this is an area of specialty within the legal profession. So you would need to find an attorney that has that expertise, and they can do it for you. Because if it's done properly, that money can be available for their needs. However, if it's not done properly, they could forfeit their SSI. So it's obviously something they don't want to have happen.
Right, exactly. Several people have asked if this is recorded, if they're going to receive documentations. I think one person wanted to know if you had a form for the letter.
Yeah, I put together, well, it's not a form, but I have in soft copy the information that I showed. I put that in as a Word document, so I can share that with you, and then you could make it available to the people who participated today. But there's not a template for the whole presentation.
Okay, thank you so much. Another person wanted to know if you have any recommendations for account passwords and their security. I'm not sure how you can answer that, but they wanted to know if you had any recommendations.
Well, passwords, what I do today, which I don't think is adequate, I've been reluctant to use one of these password managers, but so I've always done my own, and I sort of did it on a tiered basis. The first level, the highly sensitive accounts like banking accounts, investment accounts, so forth, or I have unique passwords and unique IDs, and the IDs are not my name. It would be something you would never guess. So I kind of use that as a second level of security. But and then there's others that are sort of important but not super important, that I have a different approach to security passwords. And then a third level, I don't care what it is, and I'll use the same password for everybody. Because a lot of organizations will require a password, even though it's not really that important. But I've come to the conclusion that we all should probably be using password managers. And what that is, it's a software program that you need to know one password. That's the password to get into it. And it's a complex password. And then it will create complex passwords for all of your accounts, all the accounts you put in it, so that and there will be a key for you, for your accounts. They have a key for you, and anybody that would get the they encrypt everything. So if all the passwords are encrypted, the only way they can be decrypted is to get this key, and it's housed separately. So there have been some couple of hacks of password managers, but there was one that was hacked that encrypted the passwords but didn't encrypt the other information, and so that's not good. So, but the ones that I would use would be one that encrypts everything, and it is safe because, like, you can use the most sophisticated computer in the world to try to break one of these encrypted systems, but if you don't have the keys, you can't do it. It's just impossible. Even the Chinese couldn't do it. So I would encourage people to look at that, and there are several good ones there. I'm reluctant to recommend one. I have one I think I'm going to use, but I haven't started using it yet. So for that reason, I don't want to recommend it. But that's something because a lot of people just use the same password over and over again. And, a lot of that is out in what's called the dark web, which is the domain of the hackers. And a lot of the information has been spilled through hacks of many companies over time. You name it, and the company's probably been hacked. And so that's why I think password managers are the best way to secure your passwords and manage them.
Well, we are out of time, but if you could just, one person wrote about the digital assets authorization and consent release form. How do they get that? Or what they said, is that a standard form? If not, can you give us some examples? So would they get that from their attorney or where?
What form are we talking about?
The digital assets
Oh,
authorization.
yeah,
and
it's,
consent.
well, it's something that their estate attorney should, create for them. If you would ask an estate attorney, they would know exactly what you're talking about. But
Okay, and
the title of it, I'll have to go back and read that, but it's,
I think it's digital assets or digital access form or something of that sort.
yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's the digital assets dash
Mhm.
authorization and
Mhm.
consent for release.
Mm.
And that's essentially the document you would present to a company to release the digital information they had for your loved one. And as I mentioned earlier, you really need to find out, for example, use Facebook as an example. They have their own policy. So hopefully it is compatible with the law, but there may be differences in it. So therefore, if there's one that's very important to you, whether it be Google, Microsoft, Apple, whomever, you probably should check with that company to make sure you understand what their requirements are. In addition to having, I think this is a good general form to have, but it may not be totally sufficient. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, thank you so much. And that's all the time for questions. Just a lot of questions about receiving the slides, et cetera, that will be going out. So Tom, take it away.
Folks, if you have, if you think of a question later on, please send it to Daryl at NCRGEA.com and she'll get it to Jerry and we'll get the response back to you. Don't forget, we're going to send out a survey to you, and in that survey, there will also, in that email, there'll also be a link to our YouTube channel where we're going to have a recording of this presentation. Also, this is the site in there. We'll also be posting up a document that we received from Jerry of what he just spoke about. Now, when we'll get that posted up as soon as we receive it. But also, before we leave, I want to let you know about our next Lunch and Learn webinar. And that's going to take place on April 10th from 12:30 to 1:30, and that's Battling the Aging Brain. This webinar focuses in on steps you can take to help keep your brain healthy as you get older. It's been, we've done this at many of our conferences, and it's been a very popular subject and presentation. But that's it for today, and thank you for joining us. And as always, the association stands ready to assist you in your retirement. Thank you and goodbye.